Hello and welcome back to the Bright Light Wellness YouTube channel and also the Healing with Homeopathy Substack. I really want to get a deep dive into root causes of diseases with you guys because I feel like a lot of people will throw out the word root causes and say that they're doing root cause work. And I don't think that that's actually true. And I want to just move my mic over. I want to share with you the evolution of what I think is root cause, right, to chronic diseases. Now, I used to think root causes were pathogens. I used to think root causes were circadian mismatch. I used to think root causes was I don't know, some sort of like just genetic. You're just genetics and you're kind of dealt with it and that's it. Right? This is what I used to think of root causes as. And throughout my own healing journey and through the evolution of being a practitioner and working with clients, I have learned what real causes are. And through my learnings and my studies and studying the ancient art of homeopathy and the wisdom of how they saw direct correlations between things and then disease. And I see that in my clients. I'm like, oh, it's this. Actually, I've found that knowing the root causes of people's diseases is actually really easy. It's fixing it that's hard. And that's because of the fact that people are so suppressed and their redox, their voltage, their energetic potential is so low. And over time, we are creating weaker and weaker individuals and offspring, right? Our offspring is getting weaker and weaker, and that's heartbreaking, but it's the truth of it. So I want to dive into like real root causes with you. And I just want to remind you what it's not. Like it's not hormonal imbalance, it's not mold or viruses or Lymes or pathogens, whatever. These things can be problematic. And the reason why they are problematic is because you're weak and susceptible and your voltage is low. And there's been a lot of suppression in your history and a lot of medications that you've taken, right? These are all the reasons why that you are weak and susceptible to pathogens, but pathogens are never the root cause. Neither is hormonal imbalance, neither is, leaky gut. I love that one. Well, why do you have leaky gut? We need to dig deeper into why people are struggling with what they're struggling with, and then use a modality that can actually uproot real root causes. And I want to preface it's root causes. It is always multifactorial. I rarely meet a client where I'm like, oh, it's just this one layer that we have to work on. There are layers. We are layers of an onion that we need to peel back and continue to support. So let's just take a look at, I'm going to pull up a slide here. I'm going to share my screen and I want to pull up this chart for you guys. I'm going to share it with you guys so you can actually see um, this chart that I have made about root causes of diseases. And I use this chart all the time, and I actually have just updated it because I'm noticing some other root causes of diseases that we're not really chatting about in the real world. First of all, if you have any disease, you have a genetic predisposition to it. That doesn't mean genes are your destiny. Your environment pulls the trigger. Okay. And we're going to talk about all those environmental factors that pull the trigger. But you have to have a genetic predisposition, and sometimes it doesn't manifest exactly like linearly, like we think. So, for example, like hormone and metabolic issues are so rampant in my family, like thyroid, hormone, metabolic issues, all of that. So it's not uncommon that I've dealt with these things, in my life because there have been certain triggers that have turned on that genetic predisposition. Again, we can turn genes off. I am not saying that if you have the breast cancer gene that you are doomed and you're going to have breast cancer. We can turn these genetic predispositions off. However, we need to realize that what's causing those genes to be expressed is the environment, suppression, the mental emotional traumas that we deal with, right? And the physical traumas. So sometimes it doesn't act linearly, like I was saying, it's not linear. Like, so say that your mother or father or grandparent struggled with alcoholism, it might manifest differently in you or your children. It might manifest as OCD. It's going to manifest as some sort of destructive behavior or some sort of mental emotional imbalance. It might manifest as OCD. It might manifest as like ADD or ADHD or behavioral disorders. We're going to see it maybe manifest differently. So maybe you don't pick up the alcoholism, but you develop like perfectionism and OCD and like compulsive disorder behavior, or you develop like an eating disorder, or you develop like your child has ADD or ADHD. Like we're going to see it manifest in different ways. But what I want to talk about is really the root causes of these genetic predispositions being turned on in the body. And the two main root causes I see is suppression on the physical layer or suppression on the mental emotional layer. So, first of all, let's just talk about suppression on the physical layer. Ever since the Flexner report, the Rockefeller, we are suppressing more and more and more with pharmaceuticals. And when we use these suppressive medications, what happens is that the symptoms are the healing, right? The symptoms are the way that the body is trying to fight against something. So the body comes across something, a toxin, whatever it is, some sort of toxin in the environment, likely, and the body's trying to express with symptoms, right, by removing what's no longer serving it. And we come along and we give it a suppressive medication. And we literally just stop the symptoms. So when we stop the symptoms, what actually happens is we drive the pathology deeper in the body. Example, you have eczema. Your body is trying to express on the physical layer, which is our skin layer, a very superficial layer, our largest detox organ, as a matter of fact, the skin, is trying to remove the toxicity. Something is in your system, your terrain is off, the body is trying to reach homeostasis and trying to remove what's no longer serving it. So you go to the doctor and you take some medications, you steroid cream, right? You put something on it, which steroids are messing with your hormone production. If you've taken a lot of steroids, that is going to mess with your hormone production. It's a hormone, so it messes with the hormones. When I had alopecia areata and I stuck, cortisone injections and pelvic floor dysfunction, which I also use cortisone injections from, this is a disruption and a suppression to your hormone production. Side note. Anyway, so you suppress the skin eruption with the cortisone or steroid cream or whatever you decide to use, right? Tell your immune system, hey, you're wrong. Stop. You're not doing it right. Stop doing what you're doing. You're trying to remove this toxin this way, but stop what you're doing. You're going up against your body's innate wisdom. Stop what you're doing. This is bad. Stop it. And you just like squelch it. And you get rid of the eczema, say, possibly, or whatever you're dealing with, right? And you push the pathology back deeper into the body. Here, the body was trying to let it out, and you just like told it it's wrong. There's no offense here. I've done all these things. Told them it's wrong, told your body you're wrong, stopped the body from doing its job, and pushed it back deeper in the body. Typically, we will see with suppressed eczema or suppressed skin eruptions, there's all kinds of things that I've seen come out of that. It's a big root cause of disease is suppressed skin eruptions. In homeopathy, we talk about that as the psoric miasm, which is the main miasm, the suppressed itch, which is suppression of scabies, which is the main miasm which all chronic disease ensues from. So suppressing skin eruptions, and I'm talking about with things like oregano oil as well, or other kinds of, suppressive agents that aren't even necessarily like we would consider naturally. We do not want to suppress things on the skin. It is a major root cause of chronic disease. So when we suppress these skin eruptions, what happens is a lot of times you'll see asthma develop, you can see epilepsy develop, you can see autism develop, you can see all kinds of things develop. And gut issues, absolutely, gut issues for sure. Um, and again, the skin, like this is going into the direction of cure, and I'll do a video on that. I'll write it down. I'm going to probably do that for paid subscribers on my Substack, um, because that's a really good thing to talk about. The direction of cure is would say that that would be the wrong direction of cure, right? Where when we have like something superficial on the skin, and then we push that back in, and then we have deeper things like asthma or epilepsy. These are much, much more harmful to the organism, to the person, right? the skin eczema where it's annoying and it's aggravating and it looks bad, it's very superficial and not life-threatening, right? So when we suppress things, we typically see the pattern of things going to more of a deeper rooted issues in the body. So we basically just shut the immune system down over and over and over and over and over again. We tell it it's wrong, and then the immune system kind of like doesn't put up a good fight anymore. It's weak, it's suppressed, it's not as strong, or it's dysregulated and it goes the other way. Becomes very dysregulated and it responds to everything in the environment. There's no safety in your system anymore. Everything is a threat. It responds to all the things, and then you're diagnosed with like MCAS, right? Because you have like this mast cell activation syndrome or this cell danger response that's chronically out of control, due to low voltage. We'll talk about that and low redox, but also due to the fact that your immune system is not responding appropriately due to all of the suppression that you've done to it. So suppression on the physical layer and suppression on the mental emotional layer. Those are the root causes, in my opinion. I can always trace back somebody's disease, like reason why they're dealing with what they're dealing with, to suppression on the physical layer, suppression on the mental emotional layer. So let's just talk about the suppression on the physical layer. I've kind of been rambling about it, but we're talking about your jabs. We're talking about, every time you take, you go to your well visit and you take one of those, that's a huge assault to your system, a huge suppression to the immune system. And we just keep increasing that. And I think there's more awareness of it now, but we're increasing it. And as we've increased it, chronic disease has continued to go up. I mean, I know people want to talk about it's the food and the seed oils. That is not root cause. I'm sorry. Yeah, our food system sucks and it needs a lot of support, but this is it's a much bigger shark in the tank that's causing problems, okay? And we're not addressing it. Um, Overuse of prescription of pharmaceuticals like antibiotics, antihistamines, anti-inflammatories, steroids, prescription creams, all of these things. Every time you use one of these, you're pushing pathology deeper into the body. And of course, there is a time and a place. There are emergency situations, but it's this overuse, this over chronic use. I mean, I share this all the time. I was on antibiotics for literally years and years and years, and then all my life. This is why you're damaging the mitochondria in that area. You're damaging your gut microbiome. You're damaging the cellular health there, but you're also damaging the immune system and the vital force, which you're basically just constantly telling your body that it's not right. And we need to, forcing the body to change course of action and just stopping its innate wisdom. Like we're not tuned in anymore. So all of these things are absolutely root causes of diseases. I see ailments from jab injuries day in and day out. I mean, it's a very common thing. That's my story. It's part of my story. Um, you know, these things all cause a big issue in the body. I also see removal of organs. We think we can just remove gallbladders or appendixes or, hysterectomies and things like that, and we don't think there's going to be a side effect. There is, like thyroid, like we can't just like, okay, we're going to move our thyroid and just take a medication for the rest of our lives and think there's no long-term side effects. Just like there's consequences to be using a lot of suppressive medications, there are consequences to just removing organs that our body actually needs. So that's another one. Of course, things like chemo and radiation, these are extremely suppressive. And again, sometimes we need medical intervention. I understand that. Um, but the less we can call on that and the more we can use alternative modalities that actually work, the better we're going to be. Um, we can also think about removal of warts. That's just another suppression on the skin layer. The wart is the way that the body is expressing something. It's taking the toxicity or it's taking something on the hormonal sphere or wherever, and it's putting it in the wart because it's giving it a home, right? And then we will remove it. It's a suppressive. Birth control pills absolutely are a huge suppressor onto the hormones. You can also add in things like abortions, which I know sometimes are necessary, but like morning after pills, all of those kinds of things. Birth control greatly suppress the hormones. Your body's not having like a regular period. It's not having a regular ovulation. It's not. This is another one of my root causes, and this is what I mean. Okay, let me go back. When I explained that, I said I have in my family history a strong genetic predisposition to hormonal issues, metabolic imbalances, right? My hormonal sphere is sensitive. It's very sensitive. So when I took birth control for 9 years, this had a huge impact. It's a trigger. It's the trigger that is turning on that genetic predisposition to hormonal issues later on, more hormonal issues and suppression later on in life, or more challenging hormonal shifts. Okay. Just like an antihistamine can do, just like an antibiotic can do, just like a jab can do, just like a suppression of skin eruption, all of these things will trigger your genetic predispositions to be in the on position. They will trigger these things to be manifesting in you because we're born with a blueprint. We're born with we're born with suppression from our parents. My father what my mother suppressed, what my father suppressed, I'm born with that. My grandparents, what they suppressed, I'm born with that blueprint. I'm born with that energetic blueprint. It imprints on my exclusion zone water. We'll talk about that in another video or just look into my other videos on that. It imprints on the water network on my body. It holds an energy and a frequency. And I'm born with it. I'm born with their trauma that they've had, the physical and mental, emotional trauma. I'm born with that. That is my blueprint. And these are all why these triggers in our environment can turn on these genetic predispositions because we're born with these blueprints that are just going to be manifested when we have these environmental impacts. Okay. Suppressed skin eruptions, I think I talked about that. And then there's a suppression on the mental emotional layer, which is huge and not talked about enough, but it is a huge cause of the chronic disease epidemic. So I'm talking about suppressed anger, we have to like be in the toxic positivity. That's part of it, right? We can never get angry. But when we suppress anger, this manifests as disease in the body because the body needs to have these outlets. It is very important for us to move through emotions. Emotions are energy in motion and we need to emote. We need to move through these. We cannot be shoving it in because when you suppress your emotions, the body's going to find an outlet somewhere else. So now the body's gonna be like, oh, she's shoving that anger inside. She doesn't want to tell her husband off. She doesn't want to and I don't mean you have to be a total jerk. I just mean that you have to express, you have to release. You can't just hold it all inside because it will manifest as symptomology. A very common one that we see in homeopathy is suppressed anger leading to chronic UTIs. Very common. But it can lead to so many other things. It can lead to autoimmune diseases. It can lead to breathing issues, lung issues, um, uh, diarrhea, constipation. Constipation and suppressed emotion is so common. Usually suppressed grief, but the it's like, what are you holding on to? You're not releasing. The body's not able to express, right? So sometimes it can come out in ways like in a UTI or in a skin eruption, but it can also like be like, oh, what are you holding on to and not allowing your body to release, right? You can see the hormonal sphere get really out of balance, whether it's really high sexual desire or really low sexual desire. Suppressed anger is a huge root cause, and also suppressed grief and suppressed sadness. So you have this grief, but you cannot let it out. You cannot cry. I usually see that tied in with constipation. Very often, I see suppressed anger tied in with constipation. And you're not releasing. You're not releasing what's not serving you. You're holding on to these emotions. And all of this, what all of this suppression is doing, I see it as creating like a knot in our energy, our flow of energy. So there's these bricks on our immune system that are suppressing our immune system. Think of it like that. And there's these knots in our energetic flow of our body that like these ripples, right? It's like a scar in the body would also be another cause of this. A scar is another great one, like from surgeries is another great. That's in the physical traumas, like physical injuries and surgeries to the body. But like it's like a block or a wrinkle in the energy flow, and it doesn't allow things to flow and move the way that it should. You will also see things like Lack of boundaries, people pleasing. These are absolutely root causes of diseases because, again, it's a form of suppression. You don't have any boundaries. It's a form of suppression. You can't say no. You're always like, yeah, sure, I can do it. No problem. It's no big deal, right? You never like express your wants and your needs. You're never like, oh, I really did want to not go, I really wanted to sit inside in the restaurant, but you wanted to sit outside in the restaurant, but I just do what you want to do. I really didn't want to go see the movie, or I wanted to see this movie, but I just follow what you wanted to do. Like, you're not expressing what you want as a person. You're not expressing your wants and your needs, and you're just like a punching bag. You're always saying yes. You're always people pleasing. You're not actually you're not following your own intuition, or you don't even, not connected with that, but you're not even knowing what you really want. I've seen this too. Like, these people who have this like great people pleasing, they don't even know what they want anymore because they're so suppressed on that layer that they don't even know, like, what do I even want to do? Like, I don't even know what movie I want to see. I'm happy if you're happy, which is not actually true. Whatever you want to do is not really what they mean. They just are so deeply suppressed that they don't even know answers to these questions. So, lack of boundaries for sure, people pleasing, always saying yes, suppressing your own wants and needs is a huge, huge trigger to turning on chronic disease. There's always this one too. There's this one is huge too, like perfectionism and overachieving. Always got to be, this comes from a lack, right? A lack of self-worth, right? I've always got to be perfect. I've got to do it right. I've got to overachieve. I've got to, this is my MO. I've had all of this is one of my root causes for sure. My root causes are the suppression on with pharmaceuticals. And then this one, the overachieving, is huge for me. The overachieving and the perfectionism. And I've come a long way with that. But that was also part of my story, right? Of why I developed chronic disease. But perfectionism for sure, always needing to be a high achiever and never feeling like you're enough. Never feeling like you can do enough, never feeling like your day is you, and it's like this never ending, like really bad cycle where you're like, I gotta do more, I gotta do more, I gotta do more, I gotta do more, I gotta do more. And you never reach that. Oh, look at what I've accomplished. This is amazing, right? Like, you're just in this overachieving cycle and this perfectionism. And like, oh, it always has to be done right. I've let go of so much perfectionism. I'm so proud of that. Not living in your passion and purpose. So you're working at a dead end job. You're not doing what you're in a job, or your work is not fulfilling. You're doing a job that is not aligned with your values. This is huge. I see this when your work is not aligned with your values, that is a huge disconnect, right? It's this whole not living in alignment and not living in like your passion and purpose, like what you want to do for life. So that's the suppression. Okay, now we're going to go to like the mental, emotional, like the emotional trauma and the physical trauma. So I see everybody usually has a suppression either on the physical layer or the mental emotional layer, or both. And then there's this one. This is the mental, the physical trauma or the emotional trauma. Okay, so this is a big grief that you had in your life that you've never been well since, or you couldn't move past. You couldn't grieve. You're sad, but you couldn't cry. That kind of thing. Just a huge big grief, and it doesn't always have to be a loss. It could be chronic illness can be a big grief. It could be, which could this adds another layer. It could be a disappointing relationship, or a breakup, like that you could not really, like you felt really rejected from and you couldn't recover from. Divorce. Divorces are a big trigger to chronic disease, for sure. There's also I didn't mention this one, but this made me think of it. There's also suppression on the sexual sphere. So ever since the divorce, you've lost your sexual desire, or you're in a bit like that piece of you is just gone, or you've lost the you don't want to have a partner again, ever again. So this can develop this can be a development of chronic disease as well. So you're never getting that release, as well on that sphere. So divorce is a big one, and that suppression on the sexual sphere is a big one as well. Losing a job, so especially if you're imagine if you're the high achiever, over perfectionistic person, and then you lose a job, right? That you like were high at the top, right? You lose this job that you really love and you're like thought you're doing so well at. This is huge for those kinds of people that are in that kind of way. Um, it's a huge one. It's a huge one for people. It's a big grief, especially if you're a high achiever. Moving, especially children who move very frequently, these are traumas. These are traumas. So moving is a good one, or a trigger to chronic disease. It's a grief. It's a trauma. So moving often, physical injuries to the body, head injuries. But doesn't have head injuries are huge. I see a lot of never since well since head injuries clients, or just some sort of physical injury to the body that hasn't been addressed, that has scarring, that is causing, a wrinkle or a knot in the energetic flow. So I see this one very often as well. Um, Surgeries, right? So after surgeries, there's these removal of organs or just surgeries that happen. These can also be big blocks to healing or big reasons why someone isn't getting well. Disappointing relationships, actually being in the disappointing relationship, like you're in the relationship and you're not happy in the relationship that you're in. This is huge. This is huge. Your needs aren't being met in the relationship. You express your wants and needs, but they're not being met. Huge. Big life changes in your life. We kind of mentioned a lot of them. Ailments from abuse. I see this very often in my practice as well, whether that's sexual abuse, physical abuse, or in a relationship where your partner is abusive because you're such a people pleaser. I see that one a lot as well. Um, so yeah, you never well since abuse. I see that very often. Major accidents. These are big shocks to trauma, but big shocks and trauma. I was, you know, attacked by this animal. Like I was attacked by a dog. That's a huge trauma. I was, I fell down the stairs. I fell in some ice. I slipped on some ice. I fell through ice. I, was attacked, but I survived, right? All of these things are I was in a car accident and I hit my head. All of these things are really the root causes of diseases. That was a lot. So, okay, I just want to mention, hopefully you can see my cursor, but the suppression and the emotional physical trauma, these are real root causes. These are real root causes of disease. Circadian mismatch, which I talk a lot about on my channel, is fueling chronic disease. These are fuels. This fuels the fire of chronic disease, but they're not really the triggers. And like I know this because I have clients all the time, myself included, who are like really deep in chronic disease, myself included. I was really deep in chronic disease. And we do all the circadian stuff, we do all the lifestyle stuff, and we're like, well, I've made traction, but I'm still struggling. What gives? What gives? What is the issue? That's because you're not addressing this suppression issue. You're not addressing the suppressive medications that you use. You're not addressing the physical, mental, and emotional trauma that you've endured. You're not addressing the suppressed emotions with this. It can help you. It will help. I absolutely love when clients will first do all the circadian practices with me first, which increases their voltage, it increases their charge, it makes them more resilient. It helps them have the ability to move through the hard things. It helps them have the ability to better move through emotions, to better move through the layers of healing, okay? But these things are fueling disease. And I place a huge amount of value in learning how to support clients this way. And I support clients this way as well. I'm going to tell my clients, hey, you might want to go outside more and ground more and see the sunrise and block artificial light at night. I mean, I'm preaching that to my clients all the time. But I also get the clients who are doing all of those things for years and they're still suffering. And that's because we're not addressing the suppression and the mental emotional shocks and traumas. And those are the real root causes to chronic disease. Okay, I need a sip of water. Wet my whistle. Okay, so I do want to talk about circadian mismatch because it's fueling chronic disease. And this is if you're living an indoor lifestyle, lack of sunlight, right? We belong in nature. You are in nature. You belong in nature. I'm going to get out backside of nature in just a few minutes. Exposure to non-native EMFs and artificial lights. These are stressors in your environment that keep you in the cell danger response and keep fueling that negative feedback loop, basically. Dysregulated circadian rhythms. We're meant to be living in sync with nature. We're meant to be living in sync with the day and night cycles, bright days, dark nights. We thrive on that. Our our rhythms thrive on that. Eating foods out of season. We think we can just eat whatever we want, whenever we want. We're always living in what we call the never-ending summer. Food is always abundant, that kind of thing. There's lots of toxins that we have to deal with, so mitigation of things like fluorides and heavy metals and medications, that are in our water. Glyphosate is in our food, in our water supply, like all of these toxins in our environment, absolutely fueling disease. Poor food quality, we can't get well with eating, I would never recommend to clients that food doesn't matter. We can't get well by eating processed and packaged foods. We need to be eating whole, real foods that are seasonal and local. I have my ancestral and seasonally nourished webinar and recipe ebook. You can learn more about that. I also have my Get Your Light Right webinar and ebook, my cellular hydration webinar and ebook. I provide these ebooks to my clients so they can build a beautiful foundation to heal, okay? With also recognizing that that is not, again, not the root cause, but the foundation. If I build a foundation and I get them stronger and more resilient and able to move through things and then use homeopathy, it's this beautiful, beautiful synergy. Um, Poor meal timing, again, just eating whenever you want. Daytime is for digestion, nighttime is for repair. Don't do both at the same time. Under eating, again, you need nourishment. We can't be under eating and over exercising. This was also a part of my root cause, again, but it wasn't a root cause. What's really at the root cause of the under eating and over exercising? Perfectionism and overachieving, right? So, again, go back to those real root causes. Poor sleep cycles and lack of movement, sedentary lifestyle, because we need to move our bodies. So, I hope that was helpful. That was such a mouthful. I could talk about this really for ages and give you like examples. But I mean, what I see clinically in my practice is root causes of chronic disease is suppression on the physical layer, the mental emotional layer, and also these mental emotional and physical traumas to the body. These are what's turning on your genetic predisposition to diseases. Okay, so how do you fix it? Well, my tool in my toolbox that is the greatest tool that I have is homeopathy. And that's because you can come to me and say, I've never been well since birth control. I've never been well since my dad died. And I can't cry and weep and I can't let it out. I feel like it's stuck and stagnant inside me. Um, I've never been well since I've suppressed a skin eruption. I've never been well since I removed this organ, right? That can be a little more challenging, honestly. You can come to me and say, I'm a people pleaser, I'm an overachiever, and I don't have any boundaries, and I never get angry. I don't know how to express anger, and I deal with chronic UTIs. If you tell me those things, I'm going to give you a remedy that is going to match that frequency and vibration, which is going to catalyze your immune system to heal and get stronger. Now, this is a huge topic of conversation because, and I would highly recommend watching my free webinar about what is homeopathy so you can learn more. But I will explain to you that in that webinar all about homeopathy. I'm not going to go into that now because this would be a very, very long video. But I can target the root causes with homeopathy. We have remedies for ailments from suppressed emotions. We have remedies for ailments from abuse. We have remedies for never well since head injury. We have remedies for, you know, never well since a grief or disappointed love. We have remedies for never well since a jab injury. And any remedy can shift that for you if it is the correct indicated remedy. Homeopathy uses like cures like. So it has to be the correct resonance and match. It's a frequency medicine, it's an energy medicine that will shift things in your physiology and actually reverse the momentum of chronic disease and turn these genetic predispositions in the off position. over time. It takes time. A skilled homeopath who you work with for years, who's changing the momentum of chronic disease in your body. Sometimes it takes one remedy. It's rare these days. That is rare because there's so much suppression that has happened to people, but sometimes it does, and the organism stays balanced for years. I have had that where someone has manifest panic attacks and they're better for years and they don't need a remedy, or depression, I've seen it with. But something else is probably going to come to the surface eventually. Like, so in the case of the panic attacks, where I've seen it completely ameliorate for years, 2 years later, okay, here's the skin eruptions that we have to deal with, right? And we could talk about direction of cure and how things are suppressed, that they have to come back because that's how we actually they come back to the surface to really heal in a real root cause way. So homeopathy is my go-to for removing the bricks that place on the immune system. It it catalyzes your immune system, makes your immune system stronger, so then it's ready to remove what's no longer serving you, and it helps move you in the direction that you are ready to go. So I hope this is really helpful. I'm going to stop sharing here so I can see you guys bigger. And if you're ready to, work with, ready for deep healing, you can work with me. Bright Light Wellness Coach is my website. I am taking new homeopathy clients. You can just follow me on my study, on my Healing with Homeopathy Substack. You can learn more. And yeah, we can really help remove these real root causes of diseases. And there are many causes. And true healing is not linear. It's messy, it's hard, it's deep work that needs to be done. But that's how we actually get generations healthier. I honestly believe that if everybody was using homeopathy as opposed to allopathy, that our generations would become stronger instead of weaker. Allopathy makes us weaker because it suppresses our immune system, where homeopathy actually strengthens the immune system because it's not the remedy that does the work, it's a frequency, it's a vibration that it sends to your cells, right? And then your body has to up level and do the heavy lifting. So your body actually gets stronger instead of weaker. It works with the body's innate intelligence instead of working against the body, right? It doesn't force, it supports, nudges, and guides. It's a huge difference. All right, I hope that was helpful. This was very long. Let me know if you have any questions, comments, or concerns. I'm excited to support you in the future. And yeah, please let me know your comments below. I want to hear from you. Tell me what real root causes are resonating with you. Tell me what you want to learn more about, and I'm happy to share that with you. All right, have an awesome rest of your day. Talk to you soon.